Joining us now on our book talk segment. Great to welcome a woman who's written a book. Hopefully, it's going to help a lot of people if they're looking for a mate of some sort. It's called Seeking Soulmate, Ditch the Dating Game and Find Real Connection. We're joined today by Chamin Ajjan. She's based up in Brooklyn, New York, and she is a licensed clinical social worker, and she joins us now by telephone. And Chamin, good to talk with you. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, good to have a chance to chat with you for a few minutes. I know we just passed Valentine's Day, where a lot of people think more about this, but this is a year-round thing for people. They're always looking, right? Well, why is it so hard for many people?
I think it's hard because it's one of those awkward situations that we all have to go through. But when you're dating somebody, you are in a very vulnerable position, and you're putting yourself in a place to be rejected, and that can be pretty anxiety-inducing.
See, it seems in the last maybe 10 or 15 years it's become more difficult, even though you have all these dating sites now and social media. You would think it'd be easier to meet people, but it doesn't seem that way.
I think the world is changing in so many ways, and definitely with the information revolution that's happened and smartphones and kind of being connected to people through, computers and telephones and texting and apps. I definitely think finding a connection is much more difficult because you are not connecting in that same way that you once were face to face.
I think it's a big issue. When you look at people under, say, 25 now, they barely look at each other when they're talking to each other, right? They're
oh my gosh,
it's
one of my pet peeves. I know, it's one of my pet peeves. I'll go on a date with my husband, and I'll look across, and you'll see people. You can tell they're couples, but they're on their cell phones. They're looking at their phones, not interacting with each other. And it's like, how are you guys going to connect with each other? How are you guys going to relate to each other if you guys are sucked into your phones?
Well, let's talk a little bit about the premise of the book, and you call it, I thought it was an interesting term, mindful dating. Explain that a little bit. You use kind of cognitive behavior therapy to we can help ourselves to find somebody, right?
That's right. So mindful dating is a combination of both cognitive behavioral therapy and mindfulness. CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy, is all about understanding the theoretical model based on the idea that the way you think affects the way you feel affects the way you behave affects the way you think. They're all interconnected, and once you can really learn to identify that and become aware of it, then you can figure out how to intervene on one of those levels. Now, you can't tell yourself, I'm not going to feel a certain way, I'm not going to be sad, I'm not going to be angry, but you can change the way you're thinking, and you can change the way you're behaving. And then mindfulness is all about being in the present moment, being aware of what's happening around you, and doing so in a non-judgmental way. And that's really important because a lot of people are aware, but then they say to themselves, I'm so stupid for thinking that, or why can't I stop, or stop thinking. And instead of doing that, we want for you to be curious, and we want for you to be aware, and then you make a choice from that point instead of being led by automatic pilot. Right. And so bringing all of those principles together on a date, that helps you to become more open and more present to a potential partner, and it helps you to be in touch with who you really are, and that helps you to make a genuine connection with somebody.
Yeah, I think so many people, there's always a little nervousness anyway, but people feel so much pressure, I guess, now, particularly on a first date, that they want to make it work so much that both people are really not themselves, right, at the beginning, and then that kind of messes things up. People don't give people a second chance.
Exactly. A lot of times people show up as a representative of themselves, or you're just so nervous that you're not even being your true self at all. And so, having a mindful approach going into the date really helps you to be able to be aware of some of those thoughts and feelings that might interfere with you really being who you are.
Do you think people have unrealistic expectations now? From again going back to movies, TV, everything's kind of solved in an hour and a half movie if it's romantic comedy, and people expect this is going to happen right away, and sometimes it takes 3 or 4 times to
that's right, or
connection.
even like a real reality show. You think that's real life also, but no, it takes longer for you to connect with somebody. And people get confused with, having intimate connections, and that meaning that you are supposed to be life partners with somebody. That's a whole different thing. So, it takes time to build a foundation. It takes time to get to really know somebody.
You have different chapters in the book where you talk about things. I think one of the most important ones, at least from my reading through it, building self-esteem. I guess you really have to find yourself likable in your own self before you can really find somebody else, right?
Yeah, and dating, if you aren't feeling good about yourself and you start dating, dating will really take a toll on the way that you see yourself, because rejection is just built into the process. And so if you're not strong with who you are, if you don't feel good about who you are, as soon as you get rejected, it's going to tear you down. It's going to be like the end of the world for you. And really, everybody gets rejected when they date. That's just how it goes.
In your studies, and I guess you approach this from a scientific aspect as well, I guess you just kind of talked to a bunch of different people, right? Got their thoughts when you put this book together? How'd you go about it?
Yeah, I'm just the luckiest woman in the world, because I came to New York City to get my degree, and New York City just happens to be the best lab in all the world. And so as I've worked throughout the years, in my 20s and 30s, and now I've embarked into my 40s, I have met a ton of wonderful people who don't necessarily come to me for dating, but if you're single and you're in psychotherapy, we're going to talk about dating eventually, because it does have such a huge impact on your life. So yeah, I've just had so many couples, I've had so many singles, I've had people come to me who are divorced or who are single parents, and all kinds of different circumstances, and it really has helped me to be able to create this model and given me a great wealth of information.
Do you find particularly younger people, I'm talking, just out of college maybe, or college age, do they find it a whole different aspect now of dating? I mean, I think from what, I'm not much older than, you and I are roughly the same age, I'm a little older, but it was a lot different back in the 70s and 80s than it is now.
Yeah, it was a lot different for a lot of reasons. I think also people are getting married later, they're focused less on, dating at a younger age, and more on careers, and there's all kinds of stuff. But yeah, I think the younger people have a little bit of an extra disadvantage in that they grew up in this very digital world, and the way that they communicate is via, smartphones, texting, DMing, having computer relationships,
right,
or relationships built on technology, and that really does create a deficit for them. But on the other end, they have more openness and willingness to try some of these other things that maybe the older generations aren't doing, like the online dating. And I really do think it's a viable resource. You want to get off of the online dating as soon as you connect with somebody, but it is important to use it as a resource if you're interested in dating.
So you would say pick the right site or app, whatever you use, but it is like you said, it can be used, right? You're not against
they're not all created equal, and I do think that the pay apps tend to be better. But yeah, there's a ton of different ones. There's ones for farmers. There's ones for people of the same faith or ethnicity. There's ones based on interest, and so find the one that really works for you and use it as another resource, not the only resource, but as another one. I think 1 in 5 relationships today start online, so it's important not to ignore that.
Are you optimistic about what's the dating world? People tend to get a little cynical after a while. How do you feel, or from the people you've talked to? Are they optimistic out there?
Yeah, they don't come in optimistic, but I think, yes, once they kind of go through the process, they become more optimistic. And I am very optimistic. I think love is always a good option. And if you want love in your life and you're really taking care of yourself and providing yourself with that self-love, it'll come to you eventually.
Yeah, well, you got to have hope, right?
Yeah, that's hope.
Well, it's a great book, and it's going to help a lot of people. Very easy to read and broken down into different techniques. It's called Seeking Soulmate, Ditch the Dating Game and Find Real Connection. And Chamin, give out a website if you have one. People get more information about the book.
That's right. If you look up Chamin, Chamin, Ajjan, Ajjan, you will find me. My website is chaminajjan.com. I'm on social media, on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and my book is available in all major retailers. It's on Amazon, and if it's not in your local bookstore, if you order it through them, it'll be to you in 2 to 3 days.
Great. Chamin, great talking to you. Pleasure talking to anybody from my hometown area. And good luck in
That's
Brooklyn.
Right, Brooklyn.
And hopefully we can talk again. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Bye-bye.
I'm Stan Brock. 30 years ago, I formed Remote Area Medical to help people overseas. But then we found generations of families in America, isolated by poverty from the health care they need. Together, we can take dental, vision, and medical help to 1 million adults and their kids, right here at home in the United States of America.
If you'd like to order the book we're talking about,
please go to DougMilesMedia.com and enter the author's name in the Amazon search box. Thank you for listening. Please come back soon for more conversations here at DougMilesMedia.com. This has been a presentation of Doug Miles Media, all rights reserved. You can listen to or download previous programs at iTunes, Stitcher.com, or DougMilesMedia.com.